right, hello, good afternoon. Thank you all for joining this panel discussion about reusable packaging in retail supply chain. So it is my absolute pleasure to be working with these panels here, our esteemed panel of experts with me today. My name is Samantha Lind. I am a Senior Manager of Product Management and Innovation for CHAP North America. You may be aware of CHAP iconic blue pallets. We have about globally 360 millions of full pallet crates container globally to connecting people to their life essentials every day. So for those I have not met yet, I would love to have the opportunity to connect with you after this panel. So please come and say hi. So in this panel, we will be discussing the use of reusable business case and also best practice from the global marketplace success models. Well, just want to start off with a bit of fun facts or trivia. Did you know by simply replacing 20% of single-use plastic with reusable alternative, we could represent ourselves with the opportunity of 10 billion US dollars. So these are the sound bites that just the tip of the iceberg on the RPA white paper that will be available online at reusable.org, or you could simply scan it with the QR code at the end of the session. So without much further ado, I would like to invite the panels to introduce themselves. Let's start with you, Chad.
Hi everyone, my name is Chad Vandermolen. I'm the Business Development Manager with Livery. Livery has a portfolio of reusable and temperature-controlled insulated totes. We're a little bit newer to the business, the industry. We started back in 2019. Our parent company is OtterBox, the phone case company, if you're familiar. But yeah, our main goal with our totes is to optimize our customers' operations, find efficiency in the business, all while using our reusable packaging. So I appreciate the time. I'm excited to be a part of this panel, and I look forward to spending some time with you. Thank you.
Erica?
Hi, my name's Erica Lay. I work with Rare Pacific Company. For those of you that don't know, we're a 110-year-old, fourth-generation family-owned business. We actually have a booth right over here if you're interested in checking us out after talking to me or any of my colleagues. We specialize in effectively and responsibly moving goods, resources, and ideas, like I said, for over 110 years now, and throughout the supply chains and in the waste and recycling industry. And so I'm really excited to be here with you all today and looking forward to the discussion.
I'm Aubrey Duncan. I'm the Global Director of Quality and Food Safety at Tosca. Tosca's been in business since the 1960s, where we started in the cheese industry with a reusable solution to aged cheddar cheese. Today we are a global business where we have reusable plastic assets throughout North America, Europe, and the Middle East. And I'm very excited to be here with you guys today and talking about how you can use reuse in retail supply chains.
Thank you very much, all of you. So we have a lot of grounds to get to, so let's dive in. What makes a good reusable candidate? So please share with us an example. What are your thinking process? What are the examples that we need to be considered when we are evaluating if reusable is the right business model?
So I'll start out. So I think when you talk about putting reuse into a supply chain, especially at retail, you want to think about what's your goal. A lot of people might say, well, we want a sustainable option, which is great, but it's also going to be about your bottom line. So you want the reusable asset to give you something. Maybe it's more cost effective. Maybe it's going to be better for your operational efficiencies. You might want to reduce packaging. So you want to identify that at the beginning because different assets are going to achieve that goal. It's also really important to look at what do you want to do and what industry are you using it in. So the food industry, which is what Tosca primarily services, there's going to be rules about what you're doing with that packaging, what it's made of, how often you service it, and how quickly it moves through the supply chain.
Yeah, I would just piggyback on that a little bit. And, I think anyone that's a good candidate is, yes, we want to be more sustainable. We want a packaging solution that's reusable, but that's fine and good. But are there other areas of your business that a reusable solution can check another box, right? Be more efficient, save some money, reduce energy costs. Some of those types of things are definitely areas you want to look towards when moving towards a reusable packaging solution, right? Because if it only checks off the box for being reusable, maybe there's other elements of your business that you're overlooking that you could kill multiple birds with one stone in utilizing the reusable package.
Yeah, and just to close this up, so leading sustainability, I sort of went at this through a sustainability lens, and I think a lot of times you look at these through what's quick and easy versus what will really have a true impact on your triple bottom line, and how committed are you to meeting that triple bottom line. And so when we think about it, sustainability, and like if any of you were here for Andrew's presentation just prior to this, you heard that it takes commitment, and it's not going to be cheap and quick and easy up front, but it's going to be worth it in the long run. And so just really making sure that you have cross-functional alignment to that type of commitment before you go down a path that you think might be just the cheap and quick and easy solution.
That's amazing. Thank you. So just want to know in terms of what were the best practice when it comes to reusables, right? Maybe you can share this example of from your industry, any learning from respective organization.
Yeah, I think if I'm going from experience with my customers, our biggest thing is, like I was getting to earlier, being the most efficient way of using your packaging solution, right? So I focus primarily in the grocery and last mile verticals on my business. And so, yes, we are working with these customers that are moving away from plastic bags and moving to a more reusable solution. And with doing so, they're figuring out and helping them figure out ways to limit the amount of touches that are happening with picking orders in store, staging them in the back, and then ultimately bringing them out to a customer at the front of store when it's time to pick up. So for me, best practice is finding ways to optimize that whole process by limiting the amount of touches going from associates picking in store, taking that order back to the back of house, and then ultimately having to pick up that whole solution again and bring it to front of house. So for what we're doing, we're having our customers pick the entire order into our packaging solution, and then ultimately have that all staged in one place instead of having ambient goods over here, chilled goods over here, frozen goods over here, and having them all in one tote, right? So that when order number one comes out, instead of looking at 3 places, you go find the one order number one in our packaging or package and bring it out to the customer right away. So limiting the amount of touches truly is what we're trying to instill in all of our customers in their operation.
I think for us, one of the best things to start with is just mapping out your process and really understanding what a total cost of ownership would look like, and committing to the efficiencies that need to be realized in order for that ownership model to work. So as we all know, the upfront investment is usually a little bit more for reusable packaging, but when you look at the total cost over the lifetime of that asset, it ends up being a lower cost if you can get that system right. And so making sure that you're mapping that, figuring out what those nodes are that you really need to pay special attention to in your system, and also making sure that it works and makes sense for your business and for your use case, because for being honest, it doesn't work for every case 100% of the times, right? And so just making sure that we're being realistic up front and setting those expectations with ourselves, our companies, that we're making the investment, and making sure that it's going to pay off, and making sure that we're committing to something that can actually be done.
I also think it's really important when you talk about moving from single use to reusable, you're making a change. And we all know as humans, when things change, we get a little bit uncomfortable. So we found in partnering with retailers, when we make that change, providing them as many tools as possible, especially at the retail store level, right? We want trainings, informationals. How do you fold this down? How do you stack this? Where should it go? If you're including IoT with your reusable asset, you want to have them understand when should they scan it? Can it be in the cold chain the whole time? Does it need to be stored in shelf life temperatures? So as a reusable provider, partnering with that retailer, giving them that information to make the change easy as possible. And then when they do give us feedback, right, we want to make sure we're taking that feedback and changing it either for that solution or future solutions that come.
This is very helpful by understanding the process mapping, then understanding where you want to focus on, and also setting up the team up for success with the tools and the training available. Thank you. And I would like to switch gear a little bit on automation. Well, we hear automation all around. It's really a hot topic these days. So I want to ask the panel, what are the considerations that we need to think about, especially integrating automation with reuse-based systems strategy?
Yeah, that's a good question. Automation is something everyone's trying to achieve and looking towards and trying to figure out how to implement it into their business. Fortunately enough, I have a few customers that are going more towards an automated solution, and we've designed our products to work together with that solution, right? And so the biggest thing for us in working with these customers as they're going to automation is really trying to figure out, to your point, how to make it as easy and seamless as possible to integrate, right? If our reusable packaging doesn't necessarily fit perfectly within this automation system that they're trying to implement, maybe it's going to cause more headache than it's worth, right? So the more that we can continue to partner with these customers and say, this is exactly what our needs are, this is exactly the process we're going to be going through, and seeing how our solutions can fit within those systems is always going to make things less of a headache, because when you're moving to reuse, I think you were mentioning, not every customer is a candidate for reuse, but if they're going that direction, we need to make it as simple as possible, and that's where we're trying to design solutions to fit within automated solutions. So that's how we're trying to do it.
I also think reusables are kind of unique in that they kind of lend themselves to working well in automated systems. They're made of sturdy packaging materials. Generally, they have a very similar footprint. And it's also something that can address SKU proliferation, right? So if you have 100 different pack configurations, when you look at reusables, that's a great way to streamline that. So you have less SKUs moving through that automation, and it's easier for the automation to handle that. And it makes it easier to adopt.
Yeah, I think also just to add, both of what you were saying is sort of exactly the direction that I was going there as well. Just you think about safety, you can address a lot of safety topics by having something that's consistent, durable, reusable, and when you're also, to your point, lean on your partners, like companies like ours, partners that we have in the supply chain, we see a lot of the same things, but across different use cases. And so I think when you're looking for best practices in general, when it comes to integrating products that somebody makes with automation or starting up new automation, designing that, whatever it might be, that you're able to lean on those partners and trust them and be ready and willing and able to accept their support when they're showing you sort of some new ideas or be willing to try out some new things.
Yeah, and to your point earlier, automation can be really expensive, right? And so how do you streamline that to get less and less touch points, which ultimately is going to bring down time and speed, so that you're able to get that ROI that you're looking at. So near term, it might be a little more expensive to implement, but as you move down the line, saving that time and being more efficient is going to bring that money back because you're able to process orders a lot faster.
Thank Thank you. So I'm going to switch gears in terms of ESG. Corporate ESG has become more and more prevalent these days, right? So how does a reuse-based model deliver benefit to a company sustainability program, right? And please share examples and what, especially on how do we track those metrics, right? What are the metrics that's going to be used to measure the benefits being delivered?
I'll go. Okay. So I think when you look at reusables, right, we talk about sustainability obviously is the first thing that comes to mind. And I think reusables are unique in that they also can answer the bottom line question we touched on earlier without a lot of effort. A lot of other sustainable solutions, you're gonna have pretty high CapEx investment. And a really great example at Tosca is we partnered with an Italian supermarket back in 2021, and we looked at their entire supply chain and we did an LCA with them to say if you switched from single use to reusable, what could you get and how could that benefit your bottom line? So when we switched with them in 2021 to reusables, so far through more than 2 million turns of those reusable assets, we've seen reductions in GHG and their water and in their utility use at the supermarket. And some of those reductions are greater than 30% in each category. So not only does it help for them in their sustainability report, but it goes to their bottom line because if you're using less resources, you're also spending less money. And if you want to learn more about that example, we do have our new sustainability report out at the end of September.
Yeah, I think I'm in an interesting situation because my team works with our customers to figure out ways for them to provide and pull that data, right? So a customer I'm working with right now is actually doing a labor assessment based off of our reusable solution as opposed to what they're currently doing. And if they find that there are labor savings in our reusable solution, that's the direction they're ultimately gonna go. And they're actually doing that with multiple suppliers. So I'm trying to win this business with them, but really for them, it's time. If we're able to reduce time, they had mentioned to me that for every second that they save in their process, they're gonna save about $1 million, right? And so for us, it's again, working with them as a true partner and finding ways to be as efficient as possible within their operation because time literally is money. And so the more time they're able to save, the more money they're gonna end up saving. And in the grocery space, margins are so thin anyways, anytime you can save any sort of money and have more margin brought back to your business, that's the direction they're gonna wanna go. So yes, all my customers are looking towards reuse with our solution and everything. But if it doesn't, it needs to make sense from a time saving and efficiency perspective for it to ultimately work.
And from a sustainability perspective, I mean, we saw earlier, I think this is the conference, ironically, that I've been at that talks most about life cycle analysis, which is super exciting to me. So I mean, that's definitely a main indicator when you're looking at sustainability amongst dollars, carbon footprint, impact on people, whatever it is that you're looking at. But I think when you look at each of the pillars of sustainability, when you're looking at people, it's giving you an opportunity to interact with that front line directly where they're having an impact, they can see it, feel it, hear it, and they are, as long as they're communicated to what they're tied into the main goals and why this is important, you're giving them a direct opportunity to participate in your ESG journey. In terms of planet, I mean, we've talked about life cycle and looking at carbon footprint, whether you look at carbon equivalents or water, waste, energy, whatever it might be, there's definitely a measurable impact in all of those areas. And then lastly is prosperity of a business, right? And so when we talk about, to your point earlier as well about dollars and the bottom line, that the efficiency gains that you can realize through implementing some of these solutions. And so a lot of those examples too are highlighted in this white paper. We also recently published our sustainability report, so there's some great case studies there as well, or I'm always happy to connect you up with folks and share from our perspective as well.
We haven't touched on it yet really, but I think there's also some secondary benefits when we look at sustainability, especially as in the food supply chain as a whole. So food waste is a huge topic, right? We throw millions of pounds of food away here in North America alone. So with reusable assets, they tend to protect food a little bit better, which is going to reduce the amount of shrink or loss you have at the store. So you're throwing less food away, more food on the shelves, and generally that's better for everybody, not just for your companies.
Definitely win-win about reusables. So in terms of like, we are in database economy, right? Data is knowledge, knowledge is power. So how do we leverage that using reuse-based system, generating data and actionable insights to help to benefit retailer or the supply chain partners? Maybe share with us what has worked and what has still been a challenge.
I'll go. I think when we talk about adding technology into reusable containers, there's one of the challenges, I'll start with that, is that there are a lot of options out there on the market and it's changing very quickly. So the technology that's really good today in 2 or 3 years is going to be very outdated. So when you're a company looking to make a pretty big capital investment, that decision can be difficult. What's the right thing for your supply chain, for your retail space, what's going to work? And then I think an area where we've really had success getting data, so there's a few parts to this system. It starts with the technology itself you're putting into the asset, the different touch points in the supply chain. So where do you want to gather the data? Are you looking at just internally for yourself? Do you want it at the growers and producers of the food? Do you want it in your retail distribution center spaces? And then how is that data getting reported back to you? So if you don't have a dashboard or a system in place, the data is pretty much meaningless. We've really leveraged that to understand where assets are in our supply chain and pool. And we've been pretty successful in some loss and finding our lost or stolen assets out there in the marketplace, whether it's at the retail level or different points in the supply chain, and being able to get those back.
Yeah, I think for us, data coming from a temperature-controlled solution is really about how the performance of our totes work. And our customers really care about the food safety and quality of the contents inside the box. So again, I know I've harped on this a couple times, but being a true partner with our customer, understanding exactly what their needs are and what their true cold chain is, and what those requirements would be, allow us to go back internally and run tests and do real tests with them to figure out and make sure that along the process of the entire cold chain, our products are hitting and meeting and exceeding any of the needs that they're having from a thermal performance or temperature control standpoint. So for us, temperature data is the one that we get asked about all day, every day. We want to always make sure we're meeting and exceeding the needs of our customers there.
Yeah, I think as well, just to build on what both of you were saying, there's a lot of data that you can collect on these, right? On the systems, and when you get into systems thinking and how each node affects the following or the previous one and unintended consequences, that you're able to look at a lot of data, and it can be good because we can uncover things that we previously did not have access to that type of information. But there's also sort of, I think one of the slides from an earlier presentation, again, called it a data avalanche. And it was just like, you can get overwhelmed, you can be measuring the wrong things. So it's also important to keep in mind that you can collect a lot of data, you can collect a lot of good data, but you can also collect a lot of bad data. So making sure that there's checkpoints in place to make sure that it's good, accurate, reliable, but also that you're looking at the right metrics to drive success in the system that you have set up and that's in place.
Thank you. I would like to take this opportunity to open to the questions to the audience. If anybody has a question for the panel, please raise your hand and somebody will come to you with a mic.
Hello, can you guys hear me? Okay. When you're talking about going from retail to returnable, right? Like in some businesses, you're going to go directly to the customer, right? How are you guys helping businesses be able to get that returnable back from the customer, right? That's the whole biggest issue, right? Is being able to get it back. I mean, I understand the RFID, I understand the tracking and all that, but when it gets to the customer wants to just throw it away. How do I, come up with a solution that's going to come back to me?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I can take it. So I think your question was about how can we help get it back after its use. Okay, sorry, I was having a little bit of trouble hearing you. So we have essentially a separate services arm of the business that, at least at Reg, this is how we do it. So we have a manufacturing division that manufactures our totes, pallets, crates, whatever the product is, the reusable asset is that you're looking to purchase. But then we have a separate services division. And so essentially the role in that will help do exactly what you're describing, right? So those reverse logistics, taking the product back, sorting out all the different brands of that packaging, washing it in some cases, getting it back to the use case, or if it's damaged or unusable at that point, making sure that it hits a recycler instead of the landfill, are sort of the way that we approach it, is just like a separate side of the business there with reverse logistics. So.
And then what if I need dunnage in my reusable packaging? How do I make sure that all that dunnage and all that comes back to?
Sorry, I'm having a bit of trouble hearing you.
If I have dunnage to help protect my product in the reusable packaging, it may have some foam at the bottom. It may have little foam shells in there. How do I, make sure that all that comes back and is ready to go in my usage cycle?
So
Go ahead.
yeah, so I heard that if you have dunnage or things in there protecting the product, it's going to depend on the supply chain, right? So some of those might be reusable assets, or some of those might be waste at retail. So depending on your supply chain and what you've worked out, the retailer might throw that away. It might all get sent to a sort center or sort area where they might be responsible for that. Or if it's an asset and the dunnage you want to reuse, that would be worked into the program that it stays in the reusable packaging and comes back. If you read the white paper, and there's a QR code back there that you can look at, it does talk about 3 of the most common pooling systems that are out there, and what those returns would look like. But most companies are going to have an arm or a branch that helps decide what that would look like for your supply chain. And it will depend on location, volume, how quickly things are turning through the supply chain. All of that goes into it.
Partners, but
Yeah.
leverage partnerships for sure.
For sure. That's what I was going to say is, from our standpoint, education is the biggest piece, right? So we tap into not only our marketing team, but also your marketing team to say, here's what your true operation is, here's what the process is. How can we train, whether it's the consumer, whoever you're sending it to, it's getting left on their doorstep, whatever that is, as to what they need to do once it arrives, once they pull their stuff out, right? What comes back, what stays. And a big piece from what we've done in the past is really allow the consumer the freedom to pick if that's what they want, right? So if it's an opt-in solution, they know exactly what they're opting in for. They've done their homework. So they know, hey, this package, you're gonna pull your stuff out and that's gonna be picked up on the next turn, or however the operation works, right? So really leaving it into the hands of the consumer as to, hey, this is what they expect, and they opt in because they've read and done it all on their own is great. But there's other solutions as well if you're doing it to a home, whether it's take a deposit or anything like that. It's really just a case by case basis. But we have a program that we were doing, and it was one customer was doing deposit, one customer was doing opt-in, and another customer was just saying, hope it comes back, right? And then it's really working with the customer to say, what matters to you, right? Is it going to look as a negative if you charge a deposit for this product? Yes or no, right? And then it's like, okay, if you want to do an opt-in solution, leave it on the customer, consumer, they picked it, that's the that's the group that's going to ultimately get this option or whatever. So there's multiple ways to think about it, but education for that end user is going to be a big, big piece.
Thank you for the question. Any more questions?
So you talked a lot about the economics, but what about the regulatory framework? Like what's coming on the horizon to push this? Where, maybe like an opt-in solution for, a deposit or something like that would be unattractive, but if you're forced to do it, like what's on the horizon in the US and maybe even Europe specifically that would push it in that direction as well?
Sure. I know for what I've been working with, there's the bag bans that are coming through different states for grocery stores. That's driving a lot of this conversation with those guys. Additionally, I don't know the year off the top of my head, but I know there's a styrofoam ban coming down the road as well. So there are some of those different things that are in the works now that are really driving this conversation. And I know we talk about the upfront cost of reusable, and that be kind of a hurdle for customers to really get in, right? But now, to your point, those regulations could be making these conversations around reusable solutions far more imminent. And so, yeah, I would say those are the two that I'm dealing with the most, are the styrofoam ban that's coming, as well as the bag ban.
So for us, to build on that a bit, we're primarily dealing with secondary and tertiary packaging. So a lot of the regulatory environment and discussions at this point is focused on primary packaging, and or bags, like you mentioned, certain materials, things like that. We're only really seeing the conversations about what might come in the future after this is sort of under control. The larger conversations right now really seem to be around primary packaging and, like I said, those certain specific materials that are either hard to recycle or have been called not recyclable based on the availability of services in certain areas. And it also depends on where the packaging ends up, right? So a lot of the packaging that at least we deal with and we sell is business to business. And so it's not necessarily getting in the hands of consumers, although those of you that have milk crates in your garage will definitely argue with me on that. I think there's just, when you talk about plastic packaging, there's so many different levels to that. And just keeping in mind like what area yours falls into or the application that you might be looking at is going to drive you really in the right direction of information on that that piece of I guess conversation that you're looking to have, right? Whether it's for it or against it.
When you touch on the B2B, I think it's important to regulation right now. A lot of cases, they are kind of excluding B2B, or if it's not clear that it's excluded, a great resource is the RPA. I'll give us a little soundbite here, right? We have a team who looks at those kinds of things, right? So we're monitoring regulation, how it's changing, and how as an industry can we influence it to exclude B2B or to better address the actual challenges with reusables. Also, it's important to note markets. So Europe is much further ahead in the reuse adoption game. It's very popular there, but some of the legislation's not caught up. So if you look at the EU's regulation for packaging material and recyclability, it does not match what countries are saying, like you have to have 30% recycled material in your assets. So keeping those kinds of things in mind, there might be a mandate, but the rules for your packaging or how it can be made may not be updated to that mandate yet.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other more questions? So with that, I'm gonna just turn it to the panel. Is there any key pointers that you'd like to reiterate or has not been discussed, but it's very important for the audience to take away?
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, the biggest piece is really finding a solution that covers a bunch of different boxes for you, right? Like, reusable packaging is one element. What else can that packaging do for your operation, for your business? And let's find ways to be the most efficient utilizing that one piece of, or that one packaging, right? Let's figure out how to optimize your solution. Let's make it faster to the customer, the end user, because time is money. So let's be as efficient as possible. Check as many boxes off when you're looking into a reusable solution, and find ways to be as efficient as possible within your business.
I think making science-based, data-driven decisions is extremely important. So looking at the numbers, being sure you're looking at the right numbers, and really looking at the total life cycle and total cost of ownership of these products. So that's what I will leave you all with.
I agree on the database decisions, right? Especially when you're looking at reusables as a group, you want to make sure that the choice you're picking is the best for that supply chain. So it is going to be unique and different to what you're shipping or what you're trying to do, and also to the different points in the retail, right? So if it's just between me and a manufacturer, that's one savings, one story. But if it's you, the manufacturer, the retailer, and then back, that's a different story as well. So it is going to be specific to your supply chain.
Well, thank you, everyone. I'm afraid this is the time that we have for this forum or this panel discussion. The panelists are available after this panel, so feel free to reach out if you have more questions. They'll be at their company booth as well. So a very important point is with Todd holding out the QR codes at the back of the booth here. Please scan for the white paper that share a lot of the best practice from all the company that we talk about today. It was very insightful. Please drop by at the booth for that. And to conclude, I would like to thank the panel for their insightful, valuable insights, and also everyone here for the engaging conversations. Thank you. Have a great day.